5 Vols to watch against Chattanooga. All right. That column is on offthehooksports.com right now, and we get it rolling. Caleb, Calhoun, do you want to do reverse order? You set this for me, and I'm going to tell you what I think they will do Saturday against Chattanooga.
All right, so let me set this up because I want to tell you guys how I did this, because these are the 5 key Vols who either they'll have a chance to be stars or they will actually be key because of their positions in the matchups. And I say that because Chattanooga is the number 9 ranked team in the stats poll, number 8 ranked in the FCS coaches poll. Rusty Wright is entering his 6th season. They were 8-5 last year. They returned a ton of talent, guys. They might return more talent than anybody in all of FCS play. So they are a very experienced veteran team. So all that being said, what does that mean for Tennessee this weekend? Assuming they're not going to lose to Chattanooga. I'm throwing out anybody in the trenches. And I think that's fair when you play an FCS school, Dave, right? There is absolutely nothing you can learn. Tennessee is going to win with the War Daddies for Tennessee are just going to absolutely manhandle Chattanooga on the line, right? There's not even anything to pay attention to.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that because I'm excited to see James Pierce with another year of conditioning and building his body. But you're right. I mean, he's going to be the biggest, baddest athlete running around against Chattanooga, and the next guy ain't even close. So,
So I threw that out. Where FCS teams, I do think this sometimes where FCS teams can give FBS teams trouble are if they have fundamental veteran skill position guys. Is that fair to say? Who play who know what they're doing.
Very fair to say.
So, with that being said, and with a ton of talent returning in the secondary, 4 or 5 starters back in the secondary for Chattanooga, I think the player that will be tested the most at a skill position on offense will be Chris Brazzle II. So he's number 5 on my list.
Chris Brazzle, I will go ahead and tell you, will have at least 75 yards receiving and a touchdown. Don't be surprised if he's one of the breakout players. Basically, no, I'll go ahead and I'm going to go a step further. And I want you to, if you don't care, Caleb, will you write these down? I'm going to say Chris Brazzle is the star player on offense. 125 yards, at least 125 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns, because I believe they'll pay more attention to Brew McCoy because he is more the known commodity. And Chattanooga doesn't realize how special Brazzle is. All right.
That's exactly where I was.
I think he's the superstar. All right. What's next? You're going to have to, it's going to be tough to top that one in my mind.
Well, and before y'all come to me about Squirrel White, I'm also going to say that Chattanooga returns both safeties. So they return the corner. So they're going to have their top corner and a safety on Brew. Their other safety will probably play Squirrel tough. I think Tennessee's matchup advantage is everywhere on the field, but their biggest one is Chris Brazzle in this game as the number 2 receiver. So yeah, I agree. It's number 5. Number 4, Tennessee's going to win in the trenches, but Chattanooga does a lot. They run the ball more than most FCS teams. They actually are a 55-45 run-pass ratio, and they do a lot of stretch running plays. So that's going to test a very inexperienced linebacker for Tennessee by the name of Arian Carter, who we all believe to be a superstar. But this is actually not a bad first test for him to prove that, Dave, by the way, in Arian Carter.
I can roll with that. I think he'll be very solid and make a couple of spectacular plays. Nicholas asked Dave, what do we need to expect out of Chattanooga? Well, I will tell you this. They're a tough physical team. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. I think they have a solid head coach, which is tough to get at UTC because they always want to go elsewhere. And we're going to have Gene Henley of the Chattanooga Times Free Press on tomorrow to give you a really good preview of Chattanooga. So hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't. Turn your notifications on. Ding! Make the bell go ding. Caleb, who's next?
Yeah, and you're underselling him, Dave. He's not a solid head coach. I think that if he hadn't gotten his career started late, he'd be one of the hottest commodities in FBS of a head coach, because I think this dude knows how to build he's Johnny Majors level with his ability to build a program. And
okay.
Yeah. So, all right.
Maybe we'll have him on tomorrow. I'll text him.
Number 3, it's another Carter. And again, it's Boo Carter. So Chattanooga, their passing game is their specialty. They returned their quarterback, their all-conference receiver, and they added another all-Northeast Conference receiver, while UT secondary is a major question. Boo Carter was recruited to help this issue immediately and is probably going to start at star. He's going to be tested. And given all the hype behind him in the offseason, similar to Arian, Dave, It's a very good first test for Boo Carter. Very good first test for him.
Very good first test. Again, I'm going to be solid. I'm going to say he's solid because he's a defensive back. You can't predict interceptions. But I'm going to say he's going to be solid, knows his assignment, and will essentially win the job, as Christian Harrison will get a look before garbage time. And I believe Boo Carter wins the job. So that's my prediction on him. So you can write that down. He'll be the starter headed into NC State.
I can believe you on that. Number 2, I'm staying in the secondary. Now, you may win me over with Jamal McCoy, but I'm going Ricky Gibson III because Chattanooga, I think, is going to test Tennessee secondary, and I think Ricky Gibson III will be the guy they test, and they have veteran they have all-conference receivers, like I mentioned, and an all-conference quarterback to get the ball out there. Gibson and McCoy will be tested. I think Gibson's going to be the most tested. He's got the most experience in this system, so it's his job to really kind of set the tone for the cornerbacks on the outside and take away. Again, against the Chattanooga team, these cornerbacks should be able to take away half the field on their own.
Agreed. I think he'll be fine. I think you're a little bit higher on Gibson. You might prove to be right. I'm really high on McCoy, but I think that it'll be very difficult for UTC's receivers to get off the line. I'm not even talking about really speed. I'm talking about just physicality. I think both these guys, McCoy and Ricky Gibson, are going to prove to be physical at the line of scrimmage, and that disrupts the passing game big time. That would be my prediction. I don't know if that's a good prediction or not, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, that's kind of mine too. And that's where Boo Carter's going to be a big deal because Boo Carter's playing star. He's going to play up on the line, and he's a real physical guy, so he's going to knock receivers off their routes a lot. Number 1 is obvious. He's cliche, and I'm sorry to be cliche, but he is Nico Iamaleava. And it's his first game as a starter in which he'll have a chance to light it up because he didn't have a chance to light it up against Iowa because Iowa's coverage forces you to play game management. Chattanooga's going to give him some chances to light it up. And you can't take this for granted because we saw what Joe Milton did last year against Austin Peay as an FCS school. Iamaleava is actually facing a very experienced secondary for FCS play. So, he should torch them. This isn't a real test, but it's not like it's impossible for him to be a little flat, and it will be alarming if he's a little flat. So I think Iamaleava is number 1.
He's going to throw for 350 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's my prediction. And he will come out and play the first half, play the first drive of the second half, because that's what Josh Heupel likes, and he wants him to go through a game experience of the halftime and all the things you do, but the game's going to be over by the middle of the second quarter. Now, what Vol, Caleb, almost made your list? That's a question I have for you. Brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. The promo code HOOK for 10% off, in the QR codes right there. So who didn't make the list that was close to it, Caleb?
I mentioned Squirrel White. I very, very strongly considered him, but I think that Chris Brazzle is going to be the guy who has the opportunities in this game with the way the safeties move. I almost did mention Jamal McCoy because you brought him up, and we've talked about him because both cornerbacks to me can be a factor. And I brought up the only reason I didn't do Jacoby Thomas is I don't know if he's actually going to start. Could be Andre Turntine starting there. And it's the same with safety on the other side with Will Brooks or Christian Charles. I'm not exactly sure who's going to play. I didn't really mention the 2 guys that are key in the skill positions coming back from injury, which is Keenan Peely and Brew McCoy. I'm with you. I don't think Brew McCoy is going to – I don't think they're going to try to force things to Brew because he's just getting back in rhythm. And I think Keenan Peely – I think as the Mike linebacker, I don't think he's going to be fully tested, and I don't think that he's going to want to take too much of a risk to re-injure himself in this game, which is why I left him off.